Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you for a moment, because if you walk into IE 26 the same way you walked into the last few years, you're going to get the same results. And I don't want that for you. I don't want you stuck, frustrated, tired of praying for things you're not preparing for. See, God can open doors, but you've got to be ready to walk through them. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that changed my life when I finally understood it, and it might not sound comfortable, but it's the truth. The moment you stop blaming and start taking full responsibility for your life is the moment your life begins to change. I didn't say it gets easy. I said it gets real. Because as long as you're pointing fingers, you've given your power away. You've handed control of your future to people, situations, and excuses that don't even care about you. See, a lot of us are grown, but we still live like children emotionally. When something goes wrong, we look for someone to blame. We say it's because of how we were raised, because we didn't get support, because nobody helped us, because life wasn't fair. Let me help you with something today. Life was never fair. It was never promised to be fair, but it was promised to respond to effort, to faith, and to responsibility. Once you accept that where you are right now is the result of decisions you made or decisions you avoided, you take your power back. Now listen to me carefully. Taking responsibility does not mean you weren't hurt. It does not mean people didn't do you wrong. It does not mean your past didn't knock you down. It simply means you refuse to let your past control your future. You can acknowledge the pain without living in it. You can recognize the damage without using it as an excuse. Because healing starts when you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what am I going to do about it now? Some people are waiting for apologies they're never going to get. They're waiting for closure that's never coming. They're waiting for someone else to change so they can finally move forward. That's a trap. Closure doesn't come from other people. Closure comes from a decision you make inside yourself that says, I'm done letting this hold me back. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting about permission to live your life. You have to understand this: nobody is coming to save you. I know that sounds harsh, but it's actually freeing. Because nobody is coming to save you, that means you have what it takes to save yourself. God already put the strength in you. He already gave you the ability to learn, to grow, to change, to rebuild. But you've got to meet him halfway. Faith without action is just wishful thinking. Every time you say, I can't, you're making a decision. Every time you procrastinate, you're making a decision. Every time you stay in something that's hurting you because it's familiar, you're making a decision. And those decisions add up. Responsibility means you start telling yourself the truth, even when it hurts. It means you look in the mirror and say, some of this is on me. And when you do that, something powerful happens. You stop feeling like a victim and start acting like a leader in your own life. Let me tell you something else. Taking responsibility means you stop expecting results without effort. You stop praying for things you're not willing to work for. You stop asking God to bless habits that are destroying you. You can't keep showing up late, working halfway, thinking small, talking negative, and expect big blessings. Responsibility is aligning your actions with the life you say you want. When you take responsibility, your conversations change. You stop saying, they don't give me opportunities, and start saying, how can I create one? You stop saying, I don't have time, and start saying, this isn't a priority yet. You stop saying and start saying, I need a new strategy. That shift in language is a shift in mindset, and mindset controls everything. And here's the part people don't like. Responsibility means you don't quit when it gets uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. Being disciplined is uncomfortable. But staying the same is painful. You have to decide which pain you're willing to live with. The pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Responsibility is choosing long-term peace over short-term comfort. So if you want your life to look different, you've got to start owning it. Own your mornings. Own your attitude. Own your mistakes. Own your potential. Because the moment you fully accept that your life is in your hands, that's the moment you stop surviving and start building something that actually matters. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about something simple, but powerful enough to change the direction of your entire life, if you really get it. How you start your day determines how you live your life. Most people don't lose because they're not talented. They lose because they start every morning in chaos, confusion, and complaint. They wake up already tired, already frustrated, already behind. And then they wonder why nothing ever seems to work out. The first few minutes after you open your eyes are sacred. That moment is a gift. You made it through the night. You're still here. That alone is a reason to be grateful. But instead of acknowledging that blessing, too many people reach for before they reach for faith. They check messages, news, social media, and by the time they get out of bed, their spirit is already polluted. You've let the world tell you who are before God ever gets a word in. When you build a strong morning routine rooted in gratitude and prayer, you shift the power back to where it belongs. Gratitude changes your perspective. It reminds you that even if everything isn't perfect, something is still good. And when you start focusing on what you have instead of what you lack, you stop operating from desperation and start operating from abundance. Gratitude means you settle for less. It means you recognize how far you've already come. Prayer is not begging. Prayer is alignment. It's you saying, God, order my steps today. Help me respond instead of react. Help me see opportunities instead of obstacles. When you pray in the morning, you're not asking God to do everything for you. You're asking Him to guide your effort. And let me tell you something, a day guided by faith hits different than a day driven by stress. Your morning routine doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to look like anybody else's. And it has to be intentional. Maybe it's 5 minutes of quiet. Maybe it's reading something that feeds your mind instead of drains it. Maybe it's writing down what you're thankful for. Maybe it's speaking life over yourself instead of repeating the same negative story. What matters is that you choose your mindset before the world chooses it for you. See, when you don't control your morning will control you. You'll spend the whole day reacting to people, reacting to problems, reacting to bad news. And a reactive life is a stressful life. But when you start your day centered, calm and focused, you move differently. You speak differently. You handle pressure better. You don't panic as easily because you already grounded yourself in something bigger than your circumstances. A strong morning routine also builds discipline. And discipline is what separates people who talk about change from people who experience it. Anybody can feel motivated when things are going well. But discipline shows up when you don't feel like it. Discipline is getting up and doing what needs to be done even when nobody's watching. That's how character is built. That's how confidence is built. When you honor your mornings, you send a message to yourself that your life matters, that your dreams matter, that your peace matters. You start treating your days like accidents and start treating them like assignments. And when you do that consistently, something powerful happens. Your days start stacking up differently. Your weeks feel more productive. Your mind feels clearer. Your faith feels stronger. Let me tell you this too. A morning rooted in gratitude and prayer will change how you deal with people. You become less reactive and more compassionate. You stop snapping so quickly. You stop carrying yesterday's problems into today. You learn how to forgive faster and move forward lighter. That's not weakness. That's strength. Too many people are exhausted not because they're doing too much, but because they're doing everything without spiritual and mental fuel. You can't run a high-performance life on an empty tank. Gratitude fills you. Prayer centers you. And when you start your day that way, you're not just hoping for a good day, you'll prepare for whatever the day brings. So if you want 2026 to feel different, don't wait for a miracle at midnight on December 31st. Build the habit now. Wake up with purpose. Speak gratitude. Align yourself with God, because when you win the morning, you give yourself a real chance to win the day. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be honest with you, a way that might make some of you uncomfortable, but growth has never lived in comfort. If you want your life to change, you are going to have to let some things go. And I'm not just talking about bad habits. I'm talking about certain people, certain mindsets, and certain environments that feel familiar but are quietly killing your potential. You cannot step into a new season carrying old weights. A lot of people hold on to what's hurting them because it's familiar. They stay connected to conversations that are negative, to relationships that drain them, to routines that keep them stuck. And the reason they stay is simple comfort. Even pain can feel comfortable when it's all you've known. But comfort is the enemy of growth. Nothing new enters your life until you make space for it. You have to understand this clearly. Not everyone in your life wants to see you win. Some people like you right where you are because your growth threatens their excuses. When you start changing, it forces them to look at themselves, and not everyone is ready for that. So instead of supporting you, they distract you. Instead of encouraging you, they normalize staying small. That doesn't make them evil. It just means they're not meant to go where you're going. One of the hardest lessons in life is learning that loyalty to your future sometimes requires distance from your past. You can love people without letting them have access to you. You can wish them well without allowing them to influence your decisions. Growth requires boundaries, and boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They decide what gets to stay in your life and what has to go. This also applies to habits and thoughts. Some of you wake up every day already defeated because of the way you talk to yourself. You replay old failures. You remind yourself of what didn't work. You tell yourself you're too late, too old, too behind. That kind of thinking is toxic. And if you don't cut it off, it will sabotage every opportunity that comes your way. Your mind is a powerful place. What you allow to live there will shape your reality. Letting go means you stop entertaining thoughts that don't serve where you're headed. It means you catch yourself when you start thinking small. It means you challenge your own excuses. That's not easy, because sometimes your biggest enemy sounds like your own voice. But growth requires honesty, and honesty requires courage. Some people are addicted to drama. They say they want peace, but they thrive on chaos. They stay in environments where there's always gossip, conflict, and negativity, and then they wonder why they're always stressed. Peace is a decision, and sometimes peace costs you access to people who don't know how to live without problems. If you want a clear mind, you have to clear your circle. Let me say this too. Letting go doesn't always mean cutting people off forever. Sometimes it means limiting exposure. Sometimes it means changing how much influence they have. Sometimes it means changing how much you explain yourself. You don't owe everyone access to your growth process. Some people only want to hear your plans so they can doubt them. And here's the part nobody talks about. When you let go of what's familiar, there will be moments of loneliness. There will be moments when it feels quiet. But don't confuse loneliness with alignment. Sometimes God isolates you so he can elevate you. Sometimes the silence is necessary so you can hear your own purpose again. You can't keep asking for a new life while holding on to old habits. You can't pray for clarity while staying connected to confusion. You can't say you want peace while feeding chaos. Letting go is not a loss. It's an exchange. You're trading what's comfortable for what's possible. And once you start cutting off what's holding you back, you'll notice something powerful. Your energy changes. Your focus sharpens. Your confidence grows. You stop explaining yourself so much. You stop second-guessing every decision. You start moving with intention instead of fear. So if you're serious about stepping into a better version of yourself, you have to be willing to release what no longer fits. Not because it's bad, but because it's done. And when you finally make that decision, you create space for the growth, peace, and purpose you've been praying for all along. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get real for a moment, because this is one of the hardest truths most people will ever face. Motivation is not reliable. It comes and goes like the wind, and if you're waiting for motivation to show up every day, you're going to be stuck, frustrated, and constantly behind. The real secret to progress, to success, to becoming the person you know you're capable of being, is discipline. Discipline is what carries you when motivation runs out. Discipline is what separates those who talk about their dreams from those who live them. See, most people believe that if they just feel like it, they'll achieve greatness. Well, let me tell you, feeling like it doesn't put food on the table, feeling like it doesn't pay the bills, feeling like it doesn't build skills, relationships, or character. Discipline is the bridge between dreams and reality. Discipline is showing up when you don't feel like it, doing what needs to be done, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it's boring, even if nobody notices. That's where winners are made. That's where champions are built. Let me be honest, discipline is not glamorous. It's not flashy. Nobody writes songs about it. Nobody posts quotes on Instagram about it. But discipline is the quiet force behind every success story you admire. Discipline is getting out of bed early when it's cold and dark and nobody else is awake. Discipline is saying no to instant gratification so you can have long-term gain. Discipline is finishing the project nobody wants to finish, reading the book nobody wants to read, and making the phone call nobody wants to make. Here's the thing, the world loves to reward consistency, but it doesn't reward excuses. It doesn't reward, I was too tired, or I didn't feel like it. You have to learn how to honor your commitments, even to yourself, even when the thrill is gone. Because commitment without action is useless, and motivation without discipline is temporary. You can feel inspired all day long, but if you don't execute, it changes nothing. Discipline also trains your mind to handle challenges. When you are disciplined, setbacks don't derail you the way they derail most people. Most people quit at the first sign of difficulty. Most people give up because they're uncomfortable. But discipline builds resilience. Discipline makes you strong when life hits you with disappointment, loss, or failure. Discipline keeps you moving forward when everything inside you wants to stop. And let me tell you, that is the difference between the person who achieves their goals and the person who watches life pass them by. Another thing people often forget is that discipline creates freedom. You might think discipline limits you, but it actually liberates you. When you develop the habit of showing up consistently, of doing what's required day in and day out, you no longer live at the mercy of your impulses or circumstances. You create control over your life. You create opportunities for growth. You create the ability to pursue your dreams without constantly feeling stuck or overwhelmed. Discipline gives you leverage over life in a way that luck or talent never will. But discipline doesn't happen overnight. It's built one choice at a time, one day at a time. It's waking up early even when you're tired. It's practicing when no one is watching. It's learning when no one else is learning. It's working on yourself when everyone else is distracted. And over time, these small acts of consistency compound into massive results. The difference between some muggles and someone who succeeds is usually not talent. It's daily, persistent action fueled by discipline. Let me warn you about one thing. Discipline requires sacrifice. There will be moments when you have to choose between pleasure and purpose, between comfort and growth. You'll have to push through when it's hard, and you'll have to prioritize long-term gains over short-term satisfaction. But those sacrifices are not losses. They are investments in the life you want to live. And every bit of effort you put in when it's difficult multiplies your chances of success exponentially. So, if you want 2026 to be different, if you want your life to change, if you want to finally see progress and growth that lasts, you must embrace discipline. You must do what needs to be done, even you don't feel like it. You must be willing to persist, to stay committed, to honor your word, and to push through discomfort. Because in the end, discipline is what turns dreams into reality, struggles into strength, and potential into achievement. Ladies and gentlemen, let me talk to you about something that too many people overlook, but that will literally determine whether you thrive or just survive in the years ahead. I'm talking about investing in yourself, your mind, your skills, your knowledge, and your personal growth. Too often, people think that growth just happens, like some magical blessing from the sky. But let me tell you something, growth is a choice. It doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you decide to put time, energy, and resources into becoming better than you were yesterday. See, the world is moving faster than ever before. Every single day, new opportunities emerge, and new technologies are invented, and new ways of thinking take hold. If you're not constantly learning and upgrading yourself, you will get left behind. It doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter how smart you think you are. If you stop growing, someone else who is learning will pass you by. You have to understand that your biggest asset in life is not your job, not your money, not your connections. Your biggest asset is you. Investing in yourself can take many forms. Maybe it's reading books that stretch your thinking, listening to podcasts that teach you something new, attending seminars, or enrolling in courses that develop your skills. Maybe it's hiring a coach or a mentor who can guide you and hold you accountable. The point is, you have to feed your mind, sharpen your skills, and expand your capacity. Growth requires discipline. It requires a willingness to step out of comfort and step into learning. Let me also say this, investing in yourself is not selfish. Some people feel guilty about spending time or money on personal growth, especially when they have responsibilities to others. But here's the truth. If you don't grow, you cannot serve others at your highest level. You cannot lead at your highest level. You cannot give out what you don't already have. Investing in yourself is the foundation that allows you to impact others more effectively. You can't pour from an empty cup. Another thing that's important to understand is that investing in yourself isn't always easy. Growth is uncomfortable. Learning challenges your beliefs, exposes your weaknesses, and forces you to confront areas where you are lacking. But those are exactly the areas that will define whether you succeed or stay stuck. Every time you step into discomfort to learn, every time you push yourself to master something new, you are building your future. You are creating the skills, confidence, and resilience that no one can take away from you. Consistency is key when it comes to personal development. One book, one course, or one seminar won't change your life. But daily, deliberate, consistent investment in your growth will compound over time. Think about it this way. If you spend just 30 minutes a day learning something new, by the end of a year, that's over 180 hours of focused development. That is enormous. That's the difference between someone who reacts to life and someone who shapes their life intentionally. Investing in yourself also changes your mindset. You start seeing opportunities where others see obstacles. You start thinking bigger, planning better, and believing in your potential more strongly. You stop comparing yourself to others because you understand that your focus is on your own improvement, not on competing with someone else. You start valuing progress over perfection, learning over excuses and action over procrastination. Let me warn you though, Investing in yourself requires patience. Growth doesn't happen overnight. You have to resist the temptation to quit when results are slow. You have to trust the process and trust that the time and effort you put in now will pay dividends in the future. You have to understand that every successful person you admire has been consistently investing in themselves for years before they saw the results everyone else noticed. Finally, let me make this clear. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today. Every hour you spend learning, every skill you develop, every bit of wisdom you acquire is a gift to your future self. The more you invest in yourself now, the more options, opportunities, and freedom you will have later. You cannot afford to wait for someone else to hand you a better life. You have to create it by becoming the best version of yourself. So if you want 2026 to be different, if you want to finally see progress, abundance, and success, you must commit to investing in yourself. Your knowledge, your skills, your mindset, and your personal development are the keys that will unlock doors you didn't even know existed. The decision is yours: stay the same or grow. And if you grow, everything changes. Ladies and gentlemen, let me speak to you about something that most people fear more than failure, and yet it's the one thing that separates ordinary lives from extraordinary ones. I'm talking about taking bold action despite fear and uncertainty. Too many people wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan. I'm not talking perfect conditions to start moving toward their dreams. But let me tell you something: perfect doesn't exist. Waiting for it is just a way of staying comfortable while your potential sits on the sidelines. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is a signal that you're into something important, something that could change your life. Every time you feel fear, it's an indicator that growth is knocking at your door. But most people let fear control them. They let fear dictate their choices, their conversations, and their opportunities. They say things, I can't do it, I'm not ready, or what if I fail? And the truth is, those questions never go away. You will always have some uncertainty. You will always have some risk. But the difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simple action in spite of fear. Bold action requires courage, and courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is deciding that what you want is more important than what scares you. Courage is showing up when it's uncomfortable. Courage is taking steps forward when the world seems uncertain, when the path isn't clear, and when nobody can promise that it will work out. Every single successful person you admire has felt fear. Every one of them has faced uncertainty. But what separated them was that they moved anyway. Let me give you an example that's simple but powerful. Imagine someone with a dream to start a business, write a book, or change careers. They think about it constantly, but every time they try to take a step, fear whispers. You might fail. You might lose money. People might judge you. If they listen to fear, they stay stuck. If they take bold action despite the fear, they create momentum. They learn, they grow. And even if they stumble, they don't fail. They gain experience that no amount of comfort could ever teach. Taking bold action also forces you to develop confidence. Confidence doesn't come from knowing everything. Confidence from doing something when you don't have all the answers and realizing that you can handle whatever comes your way. Every time you act in spite of fear, you prove to yourself that you are capable, that you can overcome challenges, and that you don't need perfect conditions to succeed. That confidence compounds over time and becomes a force that propels you forward, even when the obstacles seem impossible. You also have to understand that action is a teacher. Waiting and thinking and planning without doing is a trap. You learn more from moving forward imperfectly than from standing still perfectly. Action gives you feedback. It tells you what works and what doesn't. It sharpens your instincts. It creates opportunities that you could never have imagined while sitting in fear and doubt. Bold action turns abstract dreams into tangible reality. It turns ideas into results. Here's the hard truth: comfort kills potential. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. Fear grows stronger the longer it sits unchallenged. Opportunities pass. Dreams fade. But when you act boldly, you interrupt the cycle of fear. You take control of your life instead of letting circumstances control you. You show yourself that you are not defined by what could go wrong, but by what you are willing to risk to achieve what matters. Another thing to remember is that mistakes and setbacks are not failures. They are part of the process. The people who achieve greatness stumble, fall, and face rejection repeatedly. But they continue to act. They learn. They adjust. They refuse to let fear paralyze them. And every step they take, even the ones that don't go as planned, brings them closer to the life they want to live. Bold action also inspires others. When you take steps in faith, even small ones, people notice. They see someone who refuses to be controlled by fear, someone who is willing to step up, take risks, and pursue something bigger than themselves. Your courage encourages others to be brave. Your willingness to act changes not just your life, but the lives of everyone around you. So if you want 2026 to be different, if you want to see real progress, real change, and real success, you must take bold action. Stop waiting for perfect timing, perfect circumstances, or perfect confidence. Step forward even when you're scared. Move toward your dreams even when the path isn't clear. Do what needs to be done despite fear. Because the truth is, action conquers fear every single time. Every great life was built on courage, on movement, on bold steps taken when no one could guarantee the outcome. And that is how you will build yours.